Shakyamuni Buddha. Before we go into the Dharma talk, please join me in invoking our teacher's name 3 times. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. So teacher is not with us today. He's feeling a little under the weather. So he asked me to do the service today. So here I am, last minute. Well, happy Mother's Day to all the beautiful mothers out there. I'm going to take that occasion to speak on love and loving compassion, loving kindness, or unconditional love as we practice it in Buddhism. So the other day, actually, Treeman, Christopher, asked about love and detached love, right? So as we all know, there's different levels and types of love, right? There's romantic love, and there's familial love, there's friendship love, there's love you have for inanimate objects and pets and the like. So there's different categories of love. And English, being the weird language as it is, right, doesn't have a very specific word for love to differentiate the types of love, right? So if it's romantic love, we still say love. Or if you love ice cream or pizza, we still use the word love, right? So there's no distinguishment here, unless we say I'm in love with, your spouse or whomever. But the point is that regardless of what category of love it is, right, when we practice love, or unconditional love, or detached love, it is a love that is unbiased, essentially, right? So a detached love or unconditional love is loving all sentient beings for who they are, for what they are, regardless of anything, any circumstances there may be. So when we practice metta, for instance, loving kindness, right, we are practicing this loving kindness to all sentient beings, right? So the practice of loving kindness, or the metta practice itself, or the meditation itself, is to evoke this loving kindness and compassion for yourself, and then for people you love, like your family, your parents, and then you spread it to your friends or your colleagues, someone you know or care about, and you go down the line to someone who is a little bit more just on a friendly basis, like a neighbor or someone you're just kind of an acquaintance with, right? And you trickle down the line to someone that you may not necessarily like or love, right? It can be an enemy. We don't have any enemies, really, but you go down the line, right? People you really care about to people you don't necessarily care about. And so when you practice love or metta in this way, it helps us to get over the potential negative feelings or perceptions that we have about people or certain people. And so when we practice love, we try to break down that barrier or that wall we may have against certain people or certain types of people. And so as we break down that wall, that helps us continue feeling and practicing unconditional love. So in Buddhism, I don't believe we have, it's somewhere in our chant book, but we have the loving kindness prayer, right? Which is, may all beings be happy, may all beings be free from suffering, may all beings be healthy, have the causes of happiness, be happy and have the causes of happiness, be well and have the causes of wellness, etc., right? So you wish upon that on yourself, on other people, etc., etc., going down the line, right? So as we do this helps us in many different ways. One, it helps us to really establish the mindset of being able to care for other people, right? Because just like with true generosity, if we think of being generous, for instance, we can say, I want to help people, right? You can say, I want to be a nice person, I want to help people. But if you're discriminating toward the type of people you want to help, then that's not really true generosity, right? If you say, yeah, I want to go downtown and help the people, help the homeless people, but I don't want to help a certain demographic of homeless people, then you're not really being very generous, right? If you're saying, oh, I'll help you and help you and help you, but if you don't look like you're homeless, or if you don't look like you're old enough, or whatever it may be, then I'm not going to help you, right? We're discriminating, point, period, right? So that doesn't really create true generosity. True generosity is giving without the need or desire for a return. It is giving regardless of whom or what they are, right? So true generosity is truly letting go, truly having that open mindset of allowing things to happen for whomever. And so when we practice love and we practice loving kindness and compassion, we are changing our mindset, right? Because we can say, or we can think, and I think I mentioned this yesterday in our meditation class, we can think we're good people, right? We can think we're saints. But then as we're driving and someone cuts us off, and all of a sudden now we're cursing them to hell, or we're calling their mama different names, right? So where's the saintliness that we said we had, right? It's gone. We don't have that anymore. But as we practice and as we meditate on loving kindness and compassion, and we're spreading that energy out into the world, then that will subtly and over time change that mindset, right? It'll give us the capacity to say, okay, he cut me off, maybe there's a valid reason, right? And so yesterday I said, maybe their wife is giving birth in the back seat, or maybe they're rushing to the hospital for some emergency. We don't know their story, but what we typically do is give people stories based on what we think we perceive, right? If we saw a car accident outside, right, there was a fender bender, automatically, typically when there's a fender bender, for the most part, it's typically the second car's fault for the accident. Usually, because they're either driving too closely to the person in front of them, or they're going faster than they need to be, right? If you're driving with mindfulness and correctly, then you're going to be driving the speed limit, you're going to be paying attention to your surroundings, so if that car in front of you brakes, you have enough time to brake and stop, right? So if we see a fender bender, our automatic storytelling mind will say, oh, it's that second guy's fault. Look at him. He's probably drunk. He's not paying attention. It could be some teenager, and we're like, oh, they're just on their phone. They're not paying attention. Whatever it may be, right? We're going to make up these stories for them, and we really don't know what the true story is. And by doing that, that creates this really bad habit and perception in our minds, right? If we do that and we do that every day, right? If we people watch, whenever we people watch, we're giving them stories. We're making up stories in our head. But what that does is that creates this toxic perception of things and people without us truly knowing the true reality behind the story or behind the scenes, right? And so if we step back and say, oh, it's that second driver's fault, they're a teenager, they were probably on their phone, blah, 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 right? We're giving all this backstory to it. But if we can just stop and say, oh, there's an accident, everyone looks healthy and all right, and we let it go, right? We're not giving that story, we're not giving a background, we're not creating some drama. We are simply acknowledging reality as it truly is. An accident happened, everyone's alive, that's it. That's all you need to know. You don't need to know who's involved, whose fault it is, why it happened, where they're going, where they're coming from. We don't care about that. But what we typically do, we want to find all the gossip and the chisme, right? We want to have all that information. But that creates this delusion in our minds And it will start layering, right? We will stop being able to see the trueness of things and start layering these false perceptions of people and places and things. But we try to get out of that habit by practicing meditation, by practicing mindfulness. That way when we see things happen, we are seeing them happen just as they are, without having to create a story, right? And it's the same thing when we practice loving kindness and compassion is, Leon, can you open the door? That way, as we practice loving kindness and compassion, we're able to say, here I am trying to say not create stories, and here I'm trying to figure out what the story is. Okay, well, we had some on the table here. Okay. So as we practice loving kindness, whether we practice the metta meditation or we just try to look at things with loving kindness and compassion, we are trying to take away these biases and these stereotypes, maybe if we have people, right? So unconditional compassion or unconditional love here is essentially treating everyone as human beings, really, basically, right? There's oftentimes we say we don't want to give homeless people money because we don't know what they're going to do with the money, right? They can buy drugs or alcohol or whatever it may be. But really, that's none of our concern, right? It's not, we can't tell them how to spend their money like people can't tell us how to spend our money, right? They can give us ideas of, this is a good place to spend your money at, this is not a good place to spend your money at, this is a good investment, it's not a good investment, right? We get these advisories, but we can't, if we are trying to be generous and we truly want to help, then we need to give without any sort of desire for a reciprocation back, right? So if we're going to give you something, we can't say, if I'm going to give you this money, you need to do this thing for me, right? Or vice versa. So that way, when we are giving, we're giving with our full commitment, we're giving with our full potential of acknowledging their trueness. So as we go out and as we practice, or try to practice loving kindness, right, we are doing a couple things. If we're in meditation and we're trying to contemplate on loving kindness, again, we can do the metta formula of reciting, may I be happy, may I be and have the cause of happiness, may I be healthy and have the cause of healthiness, may I be free from suffering and the cause of suffering, right? And you move on to your parents, to your siblings, to your friends, and you go down you trickle down the line to people that you don't know or don't care for. And so, but outside of meditation, right, when we're in everyday life or when we're shopping or doing anything, right, we, depending on your upbringing, I guess, right, and depending on the environment that you've been in, we may have some unfortunate stereotypes toward certain people, right? And so these stereotypes, whether good or bad, true or false, we are going to change our behavior or change our outlook in life according to what we perceive, right? Whether you don't like certain type of people or certain places or things or whatever it may be, that's going to change our mindset, right? So I always bring the example up I brought the example up yesterday of if we're working, for instance, right? And we have this one coworker that on the first impression, we never really liked. We never cared for. For some reason, they did something, from that point, we stopped liking them. We ignore them, we try to avoid them as much as possible. We don't care to engage with them or whatever, right? And so, from that example, if, for instance, your boss needed to fire somebody, right, and they don't know who to choose, and they're like, hey, I give you the power to fire whoever you want. And you're like, hell yes, I'm gonna fire that one person I don't like, right? For no reason, you're just like, I don't like them, I'm gonna fire them, right? Without even thinking about anything else. You're not thinking about all the other coworkers, you're not thinking about people's abilities or skills or experience. You're simply thinking subjectively of that one person that you don't like, so that's your automatic go-to to fire. But that person that you want to fire that you don't like is one of the best employees there, right? They're always on time, they do their work correctly, they're diligent in their work, they're experienced, they know what to do, they're problem solvers. But none of that matters to you because you simply don't like that person. And so if you fire them, you're firing a pretty good asset from your team, right? But we don't typically think that way in most situations in life, right? If we don't like a certain person or a certain place, then we choose apathy over compromise, right? We're just going to avoid the place, we're going to avoid the person. We are not going to work on trying to like them or trying to like the place. We're strictly no, right? But even if you're avoiding, right, sometimes we think that even if we avoid something, right, because if we're in their presence, if you don't like a certain person, for instance, right, and you're going somewhere where you know they're going to be there, typically we think, oh, if I don't go there, then I don't have to interact with this person. I don't have to even whisper their name or whatever, right? But that's still an obstacle in our mind. That's still a negative obstacle that is a pretty heavy hindrance upon our spirituality or our spiritual development, because yes, avoiding that person will stop negative thinking toward them, but there's still that apathetic feeling we feel towards them or feel towards the people that they're with or the place or whatever it may be, right? It's still a hindrance where wherever we are, whatever time and place it is, if that name is brought up or that name of the place is brought up, automatically we're going to be in a bad mood, right? Or we start saying negative things toward that person or place. So in order to avoid that, in order to kind of get rid of that, we go back to the why meditation, right? This why meditation is very helpful for a lot of things. Most importantly, it's helpful to help us get to the core reason and truth of why we feel a certain way toward certain people or places or things, right? So if you don't like a coworker, then you sit down and meditate. Why don't I like them, right? And you come up with an answer, then you ask yourself again, why? Why? For every answer you get, or for every outcome you come up with, you ask yourself why again? Why? Until you get to that very core reason of why you don't like that person or why you don't like that place or thing. And by getting to that core reason, then we can do something about it, right? Now that we know why we feel this certain way toward this person or thing or place, now we can do something about it. We can either eliminate it completely from our life, we can try to change it, we can try to change the circumstances, or whatever it may be. We have the reason, now we have to have the solution, create a solution. And so by doing that, right, sometimes we feel so negatively towards certain people that we're just like, no matter what they do, we're never going to forgive them. And after time, maybe we even forget why we don't like this person. We're like, I don't know, we just always hated them all these years. We're just going to continue to hate them. We don't really know why. So by figuring out why, right, sometimes that core reason is something really stupid and mundane. We're like, that doesn't even apply to our life anymore. Like, why am I still angry about it, right? And so by finding that out, by finding that core reason, we can eliminate that negative feeling and thought process we have towards that thing or place or person. And that helps us get rid of the negativity that we have towards certain things or situations, whatever it may be. It helps us create that detached love or that unconditional love, right? Which is just loving everybody for who they are, what they are, regardless of anything. And by doing that, because sometimes we think we love someone so much that we just can't live our lives without them, right? That you just have to have them in your life. And if they're not in your life, then your life is over. The universe is out to get you. But that's not really love. That's attachment to this person. Because if this person were to go away, or leave you, or die, or whatever it may be, now your entire universe is broken, or you feel like your entire universe is broken, right? And now you're miserable, we're sad, we're depressed, we're angry, because we lost something that we were attached to. True love is loving with freedom. Loving with freedom means regardless of any changes that may happen in your life or their life, you're still going to love them, right? Sometimes, a lot of us, I'm sure, we've grown up with some really good friends, and over time, these friends kind of trickle away, right? Maybe they've moved out of state, out of country, they've just grown, they've gotten their careers settled, they have their family, right? And so things naturally fade away. We see that every day. But if we're so strong on those type of things, right, and we're so hung up on holding it forever and keeping it in our possession forever, that's going to cause us so much suffering when that thing or person leaves or goes away or breaks or just gets destroyed, whatever it may be, right? And so if that happens, if we feel that way, then that's not really true love. That's just attachment. And when there's attachment, there's suffering. And when there's suffering, there's going to be no peace, right? Peace comes with freedom. Peace comes with open love, open-heartedness, open mind, having an open mind. And so when we think of the things and people in our life and we say, I love you, right? If we're speaking to our parents or our siblings or our friends or even our house, right? We typically have some sort of love attachment to our house, right? Because it's something that we purchased. We worked hard for it, right? It's ours. But what if your house burns down? Right? You're thinking now your entire life is over because your house burned down. Yes, it's a very unfortunate circumstance, true. And you've lost memories and you've lost possessions, but that's all those things are just possessions, right? They are replaceable. Some things are not replaceable, right? But for the most part, we can buy a new microwave, we can buy new furniture, we can buy a new everything, pretty much. Anything in our house, we can almost always buy a replacement for, right? And so, if we see that things are able to change, and that's natural process of life, right? When there's birth, there's always death. And if there's death, then there's rebirth, right? So if we're able to detach our views and possessiveness of things, and so when they do disappear or they break or they go away, we're not suffering so much because of the loss, because we understand that loss is a natural process of life, right? part of learning our Buddhist practice is impermanence, and knowing that there's impermanence in everything around us. You cannot point to a single thing in this room that will not eventually deteriorate or break or fall apart. Nothing in this world is ever going to last forever. The earth itself will not last forever. We already know that, right? Sure, we have a few more billion years left, but that's just a fraction of a second on the cosmic scale. So when we are able to understand the impermanence of things and people and possessions we have and the things that we hold dear and love, if we are truly able to understand the impermanence of those things, then when they do disappear and go away, it's so much easier for us to accept that change. So essentially what that is change. And there's a lot of times where we are not able to handle change. We want to hold on to things for as long as we can, right? Usually if you have children, you never want them to grow up, right? We want them to say, I don't know that, I don't have children, thankfully. But if I did, and other people saying, if they have children, they never want to see them grow up. They want them to be children forever, because they're in this innocent, loving stage and period of their life where everything's just perfect. But that's just not how life is, right? They're going to grow up, they're going to go through their teens, they're going to hate you, they're going to love you again, they're going to hate you again, they're going to love you again. Right? It's a process of impermanence, right? So when we are able to accept that, right, and that's why I always mention that meditation on death is pretty important, because though it's a very dark subject to really think about or meditate on, but if we do, it does help us clearly see eventually over time. It'll help you clearly see that, yes, I love my parents, yes, I love everything that they did for me, that they are doing for me, but their life is also changeable. It's impermanent, and it will end, right? So the sooner we're able to accept that, the better we are able to handle it when it does happen, right? There's a lot of times where someone in the family dies and people are just hysterical. They cannot control their emotions. They can control what they're doing. They don't want to eat. They don't want to talk. They want to do nothing. They hide away. And by doing that, they're causing suffering to not only themselves, but to the family members around them too, who are maybe trying to help them, or just trying to get some answers, whatever it may be. So our suffering, our misunderstanding, or our unaccepted view of change can potentially not only hurt you, but hurt people around you if we don't look at it with true wisdom or true reality, or how reality truly is. But anyway, I'm off topic as usual. So when we're practicing loving kindness and we're practicing detached love is just love without the attachment. It's true love, right? We are not attached to these things or these people or these places. We are able to accept the change that will inevitably happen. We're going to accept whatever causes and conditions will arise and fall. We accept the good changes, the bad changes. We just accept the freedom in knowing that change is going to happen. Because change is not always fun, obviously, but it's necessary all the time. And so when we're able to accept that change and accept that love without the attachment to things and to people, then it becomes freeing, right? Your mind is a little bit more open, it's a little bit more freer than it would if you're just hanging on to something forever, wishing it'll never go away. And then when it does go away, then we're depressed about it or we're hurt. So I was going to chant the Loving Kindness Sutra today, but I don't believe we have it in our chant book. Right? I don't think we do. So we can do that. But I do recommend that everyone at one point do try to just Google Loving Kindness Sutra or Loving Kindness Discourse, the Metta Sutra. It's pretty short, but there's simplicity and beauty in these short sutras sometimes, and even though they're only a few paragraphs long, they have enormous wisdom behind those words, those few words. We can talk about loving kindness and compassion for weeks and not really cover the surface of it. But the moral of my talk today is, because I'm going off topic every other sentence, but the moral of my story today is to look at things as they truly are. Right, as I mentioned, when there's an accident, don't try to put a story to the accident. Don't try to place blame or create this drama in our head. Simply acknowledge that the accident has happened. If someone dies or gets hurt or is ill, acknowledge the fact that there's illness or there's death. That way, when we take these potential discriminatory labels that we give people, we're able to see them as they truly are, as just human beings, right? There's as I mentioned earlier with the homeless people, there's a huge a lot of people have really big biases toward homeless people, right? Some people think that they are just giving up on life, that they're lazy, that they don't want to do the work, whatever it may be. But these are people who are not engaged with their own community, because if they were engaged with their own community, then they know some of the stories of these people, right? In San Antonio, since we're the military home of military, because we have like 1 million bases here. I think it feels like 1 million, it's only like 4 or 5, but a very big percentage of our homeless population in San Antonio are veterans, right? So they're not lazy people. They are not giving up on life. They are suffering from some sort of trauma, right? A lot of them are. And so by recognizing that these people are people, regardless of their situation and the circumstance, then we have the capability of really thinking highly with love and compassion as to how or what we can do to help them, right? Because really, if you sit 2 groups of people and you put someone behind the glass and say, rate this homeless group versus this homeless group, right? If this homeless group are all minorities and this homeless group is all non-minorities, then some people may think that these are more homeless than these people, or these people are not really homeless, whatever it may be, right? There's always something according to people's perception of minority groups or demographics. But if we can take away this label of homelessness and we see them as human beings that need help, right? Maybe they don't want help. Sometimes all these people just want someone to talk to, really. Or they just want to be able to tell their story, right? Many years ago, before they banned this, we would go downtown and give water to the homeless people, right? Sometimes we would get donations from different restaurants for food and be able to go out and feed some of the homeless people. And a lot of times people didn't want the water, they didn't want the food, they didn't want the help. They just wanted to talk to someone who wasn't going to look down on them and judge them for being homeless or lazy or poor or whatever it is, right? A lot of these people just wanted someone to be like, I have a story to tell, and I want someone to hear it. And so we would hear some of these really great stories from some of these really good people. And that's all they wanted. They just wanted communication. They just wanted to feel like they had some sort of integrity, that they're still human beings, and to have people see them as human beings, right? But after a while, the cops stopped us from giving out water and food. Now it's like illegal. You need some sort of permit or something. I know, right? Isn't that ridiculous? So we had to stop doing that a few years ago. But even after that, I think we went out at least once or twice. We're like rogue Buddhists, and we're just still give people water and blankets during the winter anyway. But I think we only got ticketed like once, which was okay. It doesn't matter. It was like $50. But point is, if we're able to take away those labels and those biases that we normally habitually have sometimes, and just see things and people for what they truly are, then we're really able to open up our minds and hearts and see what we're able to do. Sometimes you don't need to help physically, right? Sometimes you just acknowledge that change is happening in the world, that things are impermanent, that the feelings you're feeling are impermanent, the situations around us is impermanent. This pandemic is hopefully impermanent. It doesn't feel like it's impermanent. It feels like it's going to last forever, but it will eventually dissipate, hopefully soon, because it's very annoying. Okay, I'm going to stop there because I can go on and on and on. I know I went off topic quite a bit, so I'm sorry if I lost some people. But that was my last minute talk, since I was told last minute to do the service, so I wasn't completely prepared like I normally would. But I'm going to leave it at that. If anybody has any questions, concerns, emotional outbursts that I don't want to hear, feel free to ask. Same for those online. No? Okay, cool. I also do want to remind everyone that we are celebrating Vesak in a couple weeks, Sunday, May 23rd at 10 a.m. As we can see, we're prepping for it. It's one of our biggest holidays of the year. It will be in person and virtual. However, we have some technical deficiencies that the sound may not be quite there for the virtual part, because we're missing a few pieces that will allow us to broadcast the chanting for Vesak clearly, for a while at least. But it is in person though, so if people are able to join in person, feel free to do so. We will, of course, continue to maintain social distancing and mask requirements as usual. Now that we have a bigger shrine, it's much easier to accommodate a larger number of people and separate them like we can. So that is Sunday, May 23rd at 10 a.m. to celebrate Vesak. All right, so we'll go ahead and transfer the merit and then go to chanting. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. For any positive karmic action we've accumulated here today, we wish to transfer the merit to all sentient beings and wish them full enlightenment. anxiety and sorrow. Listen, listen, this wonderful sound brings me back to my true home. In gratitude we offer this incense to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas throughout space and time. May it be fragrant as earth herself, reflecting our careful effort, our wholehearted mindfulness, and the fruit of understanding slowly ripening. May we and all beings be companions of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. May we awaken from forgetfulness and realize our true home. The incense in the censer now is burning, all the Dharma realm in every auspicious clouds appearing, our sincere intention thus fulfilling, as all Buddhas now show their perfect body. Homage to the incense cloud canopy, Bodhisattva and great Bodhisattva. Homage to the eternally abiding Buddhas, the supreme Dharma and sagely Sangha throughout the Dharma realm and the realm of empty and 3 periods of time. Homage to the fundamental teacher Shakyamuni Buddha, Manjushri great wisdom Bodhisattva, universal great conduct Bodhisattva, all Dharma guarding Deva Bodhisattvas, and the glorious mountain assembly of Buddha and Bodhisattvas. Homage to Amitabha Buddha in the land of ultimate Tasya Namaskritva Imam Arya Valokiteshvararam Dava Namo Narakindi Hri Mahava Swami Sarva Arhato Shobham Ajiyam Sarva Sattva Namo Vastava Namo Vakamavitato Tadyatha Om Havaloke Lokate Karate Hiri Mahabodhisattva Sarva Sarva Mala Mala Mahi Mahiridayam Koro Koro Karmam Doro Doro Vijate Mahavijate Dara Dara Shvaraya Chala Chala Mama Vimala Muktalehi Ahi Shina Shina Harsham Prashari Vishwa Vishwam Prashaya Holo Holo Mara Holo Holo Hri Sara Sara Siri Siri Soro Soro Bodhiya Bodhiya Bodhaya Bodhaya Maitreya Narakindi Drishanina Vayamana Swaha Siddhaya Swaha Mahasiddhaya Swaha Siddhayoge Shvaraya Swaha Narakindi Swaha Maranara Swaha Sirasimha Mukaya Swaha Sarva Mahasaya Swaha Chakrahasaya Swaha Padmakasaya Swaha Narakindi Vagalaya Swaha Mavadi Sankaraya Swaha Namo Ratnatrayaya Namo Arya Palokite Shavaraya Swaha Om Siryanto Mantra Badaya Swaha The Dharma responding to suffering, serving beings in countless ways. Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of great compassion, to whom we bow in gratitude. Seed of awakening and loving kindness in children, sprouts, and all beings, Maitreya, the Buddha, to be, to whom we bow in gratitude. Showing the way fearlessly and compassionately, the stream of all our ancestral teachers, to whom we bow in gratitude. The Dharma is deep and lovely. We now have a chance to see it and practice it. We vow to realize its true meaning. The heart of the Prajnaparamita, the Bodhisattva Avalokita, while moving in the deep course of Prajnaparamita, shed light on the 5 skandhas and found them equally. After this penetration, he overcame ill-beingness, and Shariputra, form is emptiness, emptiness is form, form is not other than emptiness is not other than form. The same is true with feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness. Listen, Shariputra, all dharmas are marked with emptiness. They are neither produced nor destroyed, neither defiled nor immaculate, neither increasing nor decreasing. Therefore, there is neither form nor feelings, no perceptions nor mental formations or consciousness, no eye or ear or nose or tongue or body or mind, no form, no smell, no taste, no touch, no object, no mind, no realms of elements, no interdependent origins, and no extinction of them, no will-being, no cause of, no end of ill-being, and no path, no understanding, no attainment, because there is no attainment. The Bodhisattvas ground in Prajnaparamita find no obstacles for their minds, having no liberating themselves forever from illusion and realizing perfect nirvana. All Buddhas in the past, present, and future arrive at Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Therefore, one should. Perfect understanding is the highest mantra, the unequaled mantra, the destroyer of ill-being, the incorruptible truth, the mantra of Prajnaparamita. Be proclaimed Gate, Gate, Para, Gate, Para, Samgate, Bodhi, Swaha, Gate, Gate, Para, Gate, Para, Samgate, Bodhi, Swaha, Gate, Para, Gate, Para, Samgate, Bodhi, Swaha. We invoke your name, Avalokiteshvara. We aspire to learn your way of listening in order to help relieve the suffering and know how to understand. We invoke your name in order to practice listening with all our attention and open heart. We will sit and listen without any prejudice. We will sit and listen without judging or reacting. We will sit and listen in order to understand. We'll sit and listen so attentively that we will be able to hear what the other person is saying. Also, what is being left unsaid. We know that just by listening deeply, we already alleviate a great deal of pain and suffering in the other person. We people. We will look all our attention and open-heartedness. We will look with unprejudiced eyes. We will look judging or reacting. We will look deeply so that we will be able to see and understand suffering through the impermanent and selfless nature of all. Your way of using the sword of understanding to cut through the bonds of suffering, thus freeing ourselves and other species. We invoke your name, Samantabhadra. We aspire to practice your vow, to act with the eyes and heart of compassion, to bring joy to one person in the morning and to ease up one person in the afternoon. We know that the happiness of others is our own happiness, and we aspire to practice joy on the path of service. We know that every word, every look, every action, and every smile can bring happiness to others. We practice wholeheartedly, we ourselves may become an inexhaustible source of peace and joy for our loved ones and for all species. We invoke your name, Shittigarva. We aspire to being present where there is darkness, suffering, oppression, and despair, so we can bring light, hope, relief, and liberation to those places. We are determined not to forget about or abandon those in desperate. Best to establish contact with those who cannot find a way out of their suffering, those whose cries for help, justice, equality, and human rights are not being heard. We know hell can be found in many places on earth. We will do our best not to contribute to create more hells on earth and to help transform the hells that already exist. We will practice in order to realize the qualities of perseverance and stability, so that the earth we can always be supportive and faithful to those in need. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and of love. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community that lives in harmony and awareness. Dwelling in the refuge of Buddha, I clearly see the path, light and beauty in the world. Dwelling in the refuge of Dharma, I learn to open many doors on the path of transformation. Dwelling in the refuge of Sangha, shining light that supports, keeping my practice free of obstruction. Taking refuge in the Buddha, in myself I aspire to help people fully master the ways of practice and walk together on the path of liberation, taking refuge in the Sangha. In myself I aspire to help all people build fourfold communities, to embrace all beings and support their transformation. Reciting the sutras, practicing the way of awareness gives rise to benefits without limit. We vow to share the fruits with all beings. We vow to offer tribute to parents, teachers, friends, and numerous beings.